now move to, well, can we, although it's not here, but can we have an adoption of the agenda as tabled and was previously circulated? Mr. Newell moves, so Dawes seconds, all in favor. So we move straight to item 5, reading and confirmation of the minutes of the meetings, 2 meetings, first held on January 14th, 2026, and the second on January 27th, 2026. So the January 14th minutes, I assume members have read, and we can have a motion for the adoption. Do I see Mr. Hines' hands? He so moves. Mr. Newell, can I see you second? Thank you. With no corrections, motion for the adoption of the minutes of the meeting of January 14th, 2026. And now we move to the minutes of the meeting of January 27th, 2026, which was circulated a few days ago. Similarly, may I have if there are no corrections, I quickly went through them. They seem quite comprehensive. Mr. Clarke, you want to move for the adoption of the January 27th meeting? You were here participating fulsomely. Thank you for moving. And Mr. Hines seconds. Thank you. So now we move to item 6, matters arising from both these meetings. And from the January 14th meeting, I had asked members to consider new topics that we would like to the committee to enter upon after this meeting or over the coming weeks. This meeting, I will be coming to the NWC and the report on item 7. But before we get there, on the matters arising, I had invited in the meeting of January 14th members to consider the new topics or the new matters they would like us to enter upon over the coming weeks. So at this point, do members having reflected on it for the last month, do they have any suggestions? Mr. Hines, I see you leaning forward, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Morning to NWC members. I would like to see if we could speak with the Ministry of Sports to deal with matters surrounding the stadium track and also support to the Jamaica Cricket Association in terms of what was pledged to the JCA by the government.
The matters surrounding the stadium track, and I didn't catch the second one. When you say
work was done there for the resurface the track. I think it was completed last March, just in time for the Boys and Girls Championship to be held. The certification of the track is still in question.
The certification of the track.
Yes,
the track is still not certified, yes, is what you're saying.
Yeah, based on my information.
And okay. But there was a second matter you raised?
Yes, that the government had pledged to give some allowance to the Jamaica Cricket Association to the tune of $1 million for development in lieu of not having the Caribbean Premier League being played in Jamaica. So I want to see where that is, if that is going according to plan. Okay,
so what we need to do is look in the budget. We need to, no, that can come in. Right, I'm saying we'll look in the budget, and if there is a provision for it.
Member Clarke,
no, hold
I am on the floor. Have you asked for point of order?
Member Clarke, Member Clarke, would you allow the chairman to do the guidance? Thank you for the assistance. But I'm saying on this matter, we will have to see if there is a provision in the 2026-27 budget. And if there is, then after the debate, the budget debate is complete, we can enter upon that.
So
topic.
then that means the first item the
first item,
yes.
which is in the
yes.
would be in the current year.
Yes.
We could.
It's just that I don't want to have them coming twice.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
So, Member Newell, you have your.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, for respecting that I'm following the rules and speaking when the mic is on. Chairman, we're approaching, I think, the first anniversary of the start of one of the Spark roads in my constituency, and I said the start of it. And roads being just a serious concern across the country. I think we should invite the Ministry of Works to have a look at just the efficiency of the implementation of the various road programs.
Yes, the Spark program straddles both years, so I don't think there's any issue.
Yes.
Mr. Clarke would have
I'm cognizant of the standing order, sir.
Spark program, so it wouldn't just be a ministry, it would be NWA, I think, is the implementing agency, so the Ministry of and NWA, relevant ministry and NWA. Any other suggestions? Yes, Mr. Hines?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just so is the Ministry of Sports, and I think the Independent Spark Limited is the agency that is
Independent Spark.
Yes, limited. Thanks.
Mr. Newell?
One more thing, Mr. Chairman. So with the move, which is supported by both sides of the House to develop Jamaica as a logistics hub, I think it is useful to invite the relevant ministry and agency to take a look at the recent congestions at the port and just to get a better understanding of what has been taking place there.
This would be the Port Authority, I believe. To be both, it might be both the Port Authority and the private entity that actually operates the port now. The name, is it CGM? CMA? CMA, I forget the name of the private entity, but we could ascertain that and invite them as well. I would also like to suggest that we have a look at the rural school bus program. I think this would be of interest to most of the members here. Majority of MPs are rural MPs, and this again straddles both financial years 25, 26 and 26, 27. So I'm going to suggest that we schedule over the next 2 or 3 sittings a review first of the Spark program, second the rural school bus program, and I think we can have in one sitting the port and the Ministry of Sports, but we would schedule that third so that we would be able to come into the relevant financial year when those matters are being looked at. So I would ask the committee clerk. Well, first of all, are we in agreement on that? Yes. And I would ask the committee clerk to schedule over the next 3 sittings. Well, you have the available dates?
Okay, let me do it then. So 2 weeks from now, the first one, right?
So we've been sitting on a fortnightly basis. So we would invite Spark, and if for some reason they're not able to come, then we would do this rural school bus, invite that ministry, which would be
The next one.
MSET/JUTC, who I think are the operators. if Spark and NWA are available for that date, then we have them. Do you think we could accommodate both in one day? No? Do one of the lesser ones that day. Okay. So the Port Authority, we could invite as well, that first day with Spark. And then the following week, we would have the rural school bus with the Ministry of Sports.
Yes, sir.
Not the following week, the following fortnight. All right. There's one other matters, in a sense, which arises from the minutes. Members, we get very comprehensive minutes. So it's 25 pages was the last one. There are different ways of approaching the minutes. What we tend to do here now, we try and capture everything that is said, which Hansard already captures that. But I think we could be more focused on the outcomes, the decisions and the outcomes, and perhaps try and condense the minutes a little bit. So it's less burdensome for members to go through because our meetings are long and our minutes are long. So with your agreement, I would ask the committee clerk to be to see if we could be a little more concise and be more decision oriented, or capturing the essence of the information that comes out, and not necessarily be as conversational where you really capture the entire conversation. So going forward, we can do that. All right. With those decisions, we can move to item 7. And we had basically wrapped up our hearing on Hurricane Melissa recovery efforts, phase 1, I would call it. But the last meeting went so long that we were not able to adequately or to allow for an adequate presentation and interrogation of the National Water Commission. And we have here, again, a team led this morning by Mr. Herman Fagan. So we can, they have a presentation on screen for us, which I would invite him to take 10 minutes. How long do you need for the presentation? 15 minutes? And then we will try, unless there's something that we need urgent clarification, we'll try not to interrupt you during that 15 minutes, and then reserve our questions for the end of your presentation. I would just ask you to introduce your team for both the Hansard recorders as well as for our viewing audience on PBCJ, although I noticed PBCJ has been very late to join the PAAC meetings, but I think this morning we are already on. So without further ado, let me welcome Mr. Fagan and his team. Apologize once again for the fact that you were here at the last sitting and didn't get an adequate opportunity to update the committee. And thank you for your patience and determination to report and give an account of your stewardship to Parliament and the people through this committee. So, floor is over to you, Mr. Fagan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members, and good morning to, is it Portmore Missionary? Portmore Missionary students and teachers who are here. So, Chairman, thank you for re-inviting us to partake or to share in this very important discussion with respect to Hurricane Melissa impact and our restoration to date. As you rightfully outlined, Chair, we didn't get ample time the last time to delve into the meat of the matter. So I appreciate the opportunity to do so today. So with me this morning to my immediate left is David Price. He's the regional manager for Hanover, Westmoreland. That was one of the most impacted region. And beside to Mr. Price's left is Assistant Vice President for Technical Services, Aubrey Williams. And to Aubrey's left is Delano Williams, is our Corporate Public Relations Manager. So we'll see just to go through pretty quickly the impact Hurricane Melissa had on our operations, the restoration progress, the remaining challenges, and inevitably the financial impact, and finally the full path to recovery. So as we know, the impact of the hurricane was significant. It really had an adverse impact on our operations. The western parishes were mostly hard hit, as is protocol before the advent of any hurricane storm. There are procedures in place where we basically shut down the network, which means predominantly all of our customers would have been impacted. Members and chair on screen we're just kind of showing in a very short way just a few of the areas that we had impact. To the top right is where we have a system called Darnock. It's actually located in Trelawney, and the entire access to that facility, which is a bridge, is actually washed away. So today that system, it's still out of operation. If we jump down to my far left, it gives a depiction of what obtains of the Great River intake after the hurricane itself. What we're looking at there is a 200,000 gallon tank in Garden, Westmoreland, that was destroyed. And to the right of that tank is one of the significant damages that we
Just a question, that's a metal tank?
Yes, Chair, it's a metal tank.
And it would have been filled with water at the time?
Yeah. Yes, Chair. So because what we did as a part of the standard operating procedures, all tanks are filled before the hurricane. So the next picture on screen shows you the breakaway of the Great River raw water pipe, and that is a 32-inch pipeline. 32-inch pipeline that goes across a bridge and goes into the treatment plant that was actually washed away. And then we have a 24-inch pipeline that transmission main from New Martha Brae in the vicinity of Lilliput that was also significantly damaged. In terms of our internal operations, a number of our offices were flooded. Roof damage, communication disruption was a major feature. That was one of the significant challenges that we had. We had teams going on the road, and what we basically had to do in the morning is also to have a conversation, have a discussion as to the method, the modus operandi for the day, because communication was basically, in some instances, non-existent. Our most important resources, which is our staff, a number had significant displacements, and a number of the operational teams were unable to come to the office, so we basically could have that discussion. So that was a significant challenge that we had. And accessibility, inevitably, to a number of our facilities and to our network, that was also a significant challenge. The emergency response measures, how did we respond after the storm itself? So what we basically did with the human resources that we had at our disposal, that is those staff members and operational team, we had rapid team deployment in areas that we could visit. So the eastern part of the island was not significantly impacted. So even though the major treatment plants were closed down, Mona, Spanish Town, Constant Spring, thereafter, within a short space of time, we were able to get back those facilities up and running. And Mona, Spanish Town, Constant Spring would constitute Bourg, St. Anne, would constitute a significant percentage of our customers. The strategies that we utilize are we identify the priority areas. The hospitals were of paramount importance, the economic or town centers, and the highly dense populated area or communities. Schools were also taken into consideration. In the aftermath, there are some temporary measures that we had to put in place. For example, the installation of makeshift loading bays. So we had some facilities. For example, in Montego Bay, we had the loading bay, the major loading bay or the premier loading bay in the parish. We basically got that back one up. People don't have water. So invariably, they'll be basically coming to the facility and they want water. So what we basically did, we set up some standpipes outside the facility, which gave the citizens access to the service. And that strategy we found worked pretty well, and it was replicated across the enterprise. Catherine, all chair and members, we know that they were significantly impacted based on the flooding that took place. The network itself was totally gone. So what we did, we installed some wayside tanks, ensure that they were sterilized, ensure that they were basically installed in areas where there's access, easy access to the community members. And that strategy also was also replicated to a number of different communities. The management staff was redeployed. So we had absolutely no management staff in office. And that is consistent with the operations of our business continuity plan. So in essence, our business continuity plan is just a roadmap. How do we operate in case of an emergency? So the senior management staff were redeployed to different areas. For example, the Reading loading bay, we ensured that there were senior people there on the ground, while others were basically combing the network with the local staff to do an assessment. The areas that we got back on the network, we did valve regulation just to ensure that the water supply, the limited supply that we had, would have reached a wide cross-section of our customers as possible. Trucking, the need and the cost for trucking was significant. The acquisition of 13 trucks came at an opportune time. So those 13 trucks were dispersed across the enterprise. The western parishes got 9 of those trucks, considering those areas that were the most impacted. So one of the things we also did, chair and members, is that we redeployed trucking resources from the eastern part. So we had team from St. Catherine and Clarendon and Kingston being deployed to the west to assist with trucking, which was an extremely challenging and difficult exercise to maneuver, as you would appreciate. We had a revision of the trucking rates, but because it's all about demand and supply any time of a disaster. So we had a temporary review of our trucking rates just to make it a bit more competitive, so that our contractors would be able to not only work with us, but ensure that from an economic standpoint, it was viable for them.
So these contractors are not exclusive to NWC. They're also supplying private customers.
Yes,
so
sure.
You have to compete.
Yes, sure. You are correct. So just imagine us, we have a fixed rate. So our system is set up, despite the fact that it was a disaster, we really can't just change the rates like that. So if we are paying $5 per gallon, private man is paying 2 or 3 times. From a profit standpoint, you can understand the way they would go. So we had some collaboration significantly with our major power supplier, which is a Jamaica Public Service company. So we would have indicated that the major production facilities, treatment plants, and selected systems, we would have indicated the ones from a priority standpoint that needed to be put back into operation. UNICEF provided us with some technical support The only challenge that we really appreciated the support that we got from them, but the only challenge is that most of the technical support that they gave us could not be put into operation because the systems were basically out. We got some assistance from them in the form of generators, and on screen there is a living water treatment system plants, which has a capacity and a capability of producing about 10,000 gallons of water per day. And Chair, we are very happy that 3 of those plants they would have given back to us, handed back to us. So this gives us some degree of flexibility, so we can utilize these.
Could you just explain to the laypersons what is a living water treatment?
Okay, so a living water treatment plant is actually we have a generator attached to a tank. So we extract the water from a source, for example, like from a river, and the requisite treatment process can take place right there.
So it's like a portable water treatment plant.
Yes, Chair. You're correct. Right. We had a partnership with Yellow Media, a total of in excess of 3,700 buckets were distributed in different communities, and that proved very, very, very effective, to say the least, because what we find is that when we go into a number of the communities with trucks to do delivery, a number of the community members really don't have adequate storage. So that came in very handy. The MV Dawn, which is a ship, they had a floating water vessel on board where they did RO. And what we basically did is take the water from them via our own trucks and had distribution done in some of the communities in Hanover that didn't have access to supply. So as a part of the infrastructure restoration, we started the major pipeline repairs. I indicated earlier about the major one. And for emphasis, in terms of significant infrastructure damage, major, St. James, Trelawney, particularly St. James, had the most. And on screen there, it shows a depiction of the 32-inch pipeline, Chair, that I indicated earlier that was washed away. So what we did, rather than putting up back a pipe bridge to go across the river, we rerouted it along the roadway. So in the future, should we have a next hurricane of this magnitude, we don't have a situation or case in point where it is washed away. A number of pumping stations would have been inundated.
No, again, I just want to understand. I have an idea of where that pipeline was. It was where the road bridge crosses the river. It was underneath at that location.
No, it was not underneath.
So you have now relocated it to that location, right, where the road bridge is.
Precisely.
So it would be on the underside or to the side of the bridge.
This is to the side, Chair.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So a number of pumping station. Portobello is one, and I know that has resonance to one of our members who is here. And the intake roadway, we basically had emergency works effected on those. The use of drone technology, Chair, we utilize that extensively as a part of the restoration process, because there are a number of areas that we basically could not visit either on foot or driving. So the drones prove very, very, very significant in that regard. The plans for restoration, for full restoration, we continue the pipeline rehabilitation. And I must hasten to add that one of the challenges that we are having as water comes back on the network and they're energized, leaks are popping up everywhere. A number of the pipelines are underground, so we really, with the naked eye, can't determine exactly where they are. So as soon as the systems are back up, most of those leaks would manifest themselves, so we have to deal with those on an ongoing basis. And we would have realized that the number of leaks that we basically have since the hurricane has increased, maybe in some instances, some parishes, to 30 to up to 45%. So as a part of the full restoration, we want to move from the trucking to normal supply. There will be need for well rehabilitation in some instances based on the kind of damage that was suffered, and we have ongoing system optimization. This chair and members give an idea as to exactly what obtains now. So we have 612 main sites, and to date, 96% of those sites actually has JPS power. 587. So 25 sites don't have power. JPS would have committed to us that 13 from those 25 sites will have power restored by the end of this month. From the remaining 12, 6 already have generators in place, and we have moved now to have generators installed on the 6 other locations. I think 2 in particular is a little bit problematic. Malvern 1 and Malvern number 2, based on the terrain. But my technical team is actually looking at ways and means how we basically can maneuver that, the issues there. So
these generators are continuous duty generators,
continuous,
not standby.
Yeah, continuous. We have a number of sites. So we have 20 systems that JPS would have restored power chair. However, there is need for remedial work to be done. St. James South is one of those areas. And remember, I'm happy to advise that a number of those facilities should be back, certainly by the end of this month, the 15th of March. That is a deadline we have set ourselves. The table gives an indication as to where we are at. To date, 95% of our customers have a service restored. I must hasten to add that, as I indicated earlier, the bigger treatment plants and the larger treatment plants constitute the significant percentage, the highest significant percentage of all our customer base, despite the fact that we still have a number of systems which are out of operation, mostly located in rural districts. Inevitably, this would have come at a significant cost. From a revenue standpoint, to date, we have incurred a drop in our revenue in just about $3 billion.
Again, this is since from October 28th to the present.
That's correct.
So it would be about $1 billion a month.
Yes, on average. So Chair, what we found is that even though, as I said, it's an average, the month after will be more significant. But as some of the systems come back online, there have been improvement. The hotel sector would have been significantly impacted, and they are one of our primary customers. So that in itself would have a significant impact. In addition to the works that we have to be doing, the security is an issue. The cost for generator and fuel maintenance, and there's a security component to that. That is very significant, and a number of buildings that we have to continue rehabilitation. The fencing of most of the properties, that is something that we're also looking at, which will come at a significant cost. But we are basically prioritizing getting up the systems up and running before we basically undertake most of those works.
But in addition to the revenue loss, do you have any estimate of the capital damage that was done and the cost to rehabilitate that?
Yes, Chair. The preliminary estimate that was done is just about $3.7 billion. And it is growing, because just recently we had a system put back in operation, 100,000 gallon tank. Water was replenished in the tank just to find out that the tank is leaking. It suffered damage. And 100,000 gallon tank, I think it cost somewhere about $80 million. So even though we had a preliminary estimate, it's still
as we go along, so you're talking somewhere in the region of $7 billion total impact.
I think, Chair, that would be a very good ballpark figure that we're looking at. The we outlined some realities quickly. So the impact from revenue shortfalls inevitably will impact our operations. There are a number of things that a number of plans that we basically had in place that we have to really look at. The water trucking logistics is still proving challenging. There's some of the terrains that's still limited access in some instances. And we have to highlight the issue of generators because chair and members, for most part, we hear this claim that we need to put generators everywhere. But there are challenges. There are limitations in that regard. So the cost for putting in generators in place, most of them. So we have generators that we own. But based on the need, we have to do a lot of contracting, and it's extremely expensive, to say the least. The last collation of our figures, I think we would have expended over $500 million just for the operational cost for generators alone. The reduced system reach, meaning that we would have gotten back some of our systems on stream. Though we have generators there, it has some limitation in that regard. So that is something that we also have to grapple with. So Chair, in a nutshell, that is basically what it is. I think we would have made significant progress in light of the magnitude of damage that we basically suffered. We still have some way to go, but we are with the support, and I must take the opportunity to really to big up Team NWC based on the sterling work that they have undertaken thus far.
Thank you, Mr. Fagan. But before I open to questions from members, I would really love you to expand a little more on the financial impact on the NWC. We are in the process of looking at the estimates of expenditure for both central government and the public bodies, and to inform members, all members, not just members of the committee, but I think it would be useful if you could give us some sense what if any of those losses or additional expenses would be covered by insurance. What, if any, has been covered by allocations from central government, either directly or through the OUR to support the NWC. And looking forward into the coming fiscal year, I imagine there's going to be a long tail effect in some of these in terms of your revenue, because we've heard major hotel chains, for example, say they may not reopen until later in the year. So those good customers, water, sewage customers, they will be out for an extended period of time. So I'm sure your team must have done some projections to give a little more information on the financial impact, because the part of the mandate of this committee is really looking at the numbers and understanding not just the performance, which I think you've given us a very good overview of, but understanding the impact on numbers and how this will affect the entity going forward. And if you want to ask one of your other members to assist, that's fine as well.
All right, so Chair, so let me start with the first question that you asked. The assessment from an insurance perspective that was undertaken, the insurers would have sent in their team and would have gone through at most of the critical sites locations where we suffer damage. And I was advised by my CFO that we would have gotten some drawdown from an insurance perspective. You
have any sense of what that might be? Just ballpark. I'm not asking a precise number. Is it
I think
10 million, 100 million, a billion?
somewhere in the region of 2.5 million US.
2.5 million US.
Yes. Yeah. From central government, I know that we would have gotten some support, Chair, but I don't have the exact figure from us, but I could provide that information. But I'm pretty sure that we would have gotten support from central government. I'm pretty sure of that, but I could get the actual figure and give to you. Chair, one of the things that would have done also would have done a submission to our ministry, and which would have been communicated to Ministry of Finance, the kind of support that we basically need in light of the fact that we are going to have this revenue shortfall going forward, which is going to have an impact on our day-to-day operations. We are basically starting the new financial year next month. We'd have had a number of projects planned, small projects planned, which comes at a cost. It will have an impact. We also have from a capital expenditure standpoint. So that submission would have been made as to the extent to which we will definitely need some support.
So that's assistance in the 26-27 financial year.
Yes,
you would have made that submission.
Yes,
so
that submission was made.
We will go back to when we get to standing finance committee. We will have a closer examination of that. Okay. I have Mr. Newell, Dr. Dawes, and Mr. Clarke in that order, and Mr. Hines. Then, Mr. Newell.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to the NWC team. Just to start at something that was said earlier, but I don't think it was really elaborated on, that your staff is your best resource and a number have been impacted. I always like to get an idea of the kind of support provided to staff in times such as these. Can you expand?
Yeah. So remember, a number of our staff would have been impacted. So the organization would have gone in and have discussions at the different levels. I would have provided care packages and gotten a sense of the kind of damage that they would have sustained. So the process is in train for us to provide the assistance to those.
So you're providing some assistance. In terms of the design of your network, I know everything wouldn't have been designed at once, but has any assessment been done of, say, how climate smart the network is and what category hurricane and earthquake you can withstand?
So remember, a number of these pipelines would have been installed many moons ago. Chair, as a former chair, would appreciate that. So what I can tell you, what we have done now going forward, whatever is there is there already. We really can't just go up and take up a 32-inch main. But certainly going forward, what we have done is in any new design for any new systems that we are doing, that is basically taken into consideration where these pipelines are located, and also the type of pipelines that we basically utilize. We have some pipelines for smaller sizes, for example, let's say a 4 or 6 inch diameter. What we have said to the team, no, we're not going to do any repair or replacement and put back in that area. That had a significant impact.
So I know, for example, that there's a $5 billion MOU with a private developer to include pipe laying as a part of a major road project that is going on now. Were there any climate risk considerations in terms of the scope of those works?
So yes, members. So with the partnership with that contractor, which is NWA, is who we basically partner with in that regard. So any design for how the pipelines and the network is set up, we will basically take that into consideration, contemporary thinking. So we're not going to basically have no design of any network in such a way that it is susceptible where we have landslides, etc.
So the answer to your question is yes. So this design that would have been done before, Melissa, you're saying at that time the climate considerations would have been in place in terms of the implementation of that project?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't get it clearly.
No, I'm saying I know the Spark program would have been designed prior to. What I'm trying to get an understanding of is projects, not the ones when the chairman was chairman there, which might be some decades ago. But, but I'm trying to get an understanding of whether within recent times, the aspects of your system that would have been implemented in recent years, whether those would be climate smart and whether there's any risk mapping where climate considerations are concerned for those.
Yes, Chair. The answer to your question is yes. A matter of fact, I just had a discussion with my colleague at the NWA yesterday, and that is one of the important points in the discussion. So some designs were done. So what they basically have called us now in to do is to have an assessment to look at what is basically there, so that we can ensure that it, for most part, as best as possible, they are climate resilient.
What department handles just ensuring compliance in that regard where climate considerations are concerned? Is it operations? Is it your risk management? Or do you have a professional on board who ensures that things meet certain resilience standards?
Okay. So how our structure is set up? We are operations, but we have an engineering department. And their job primarily, and that kind of resources, quality control is a part of that unit. So a part of their remit is to ensure that whenever systems are designed, and that is the reason why, remember, sometimes we have a delay or sometimes a challenge, because we are insistent, based on our own experience, that there's certain criterion that must be adhered to. So the answer to your question is yes. That
Mr. Chairman, just one more question.
No, Mr. Newell, I'm going to do a round.
No problem.
And then we'll come back to you. Dr. Dawes.
Not. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. What is the timeline for 100% restoration?
By the end of March.
Okay.
By the end of March, I remember.
All right, let's just go back to the generator issue again. Now, you have outlined priority areas, hospitals, clinics, major urban centers. Why is it that since you can't put generators everywhere, you at least prioritize your well-defined priority areas as those that you would have permanent standby generators?
What we basically have in place now, and maybe it didn't come out in the presentation, but for most of our major systems and our priority systems, we have generators in place.
Well, I can speak for Portmore, where the major issue whenever we ask about water is that JPS is the issue. And there has been no standby generator, and correct me if I'm wrong, or the generator is not working. But whenever there's an issue with JPS, Portmore on a whole does not have water. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the complaint that I am getting. Maybe it's another reason.
So remember, I'm going to answer you within this context. Where the facilities, for example, that supply Portmore are located, where those wells are located, at different times we have single phase issues which is related to JPS. Maybe it is vegetation on the lines, etc., etc. So we have generators at specific facilities. Remember, it's not, what should I put it? Not practical to have generators everywhere. So this is just not practical. The other thing that needs to be put into that I must also add is the capacity of what the generator can produce relative to the horsepower that is required to run a facility. That's one of the challenges that we basically have. That's a real one. I can give you a typical example. For example, for a facility like Lagwood, that Aubrey is requires about 1,000 kVA, about 1,200 kVA. We had a generator there. I got damaged during the hurricane. The rental to put a generator there is about $500,000 per day.
$500,000 per day.
Per day. So I understand, member, and I really appreciate the perspective. However, it is not something that we can totally or 100% get rid of. Notwithstanding the priority systems that we have now in place, and a number of the wells that supply your area is one. Aubrey, I think, is on the new listing would have earmarked. So we have done a listing sometime last year, Chair, which is going through the requisite procurement process. Melissa came at an inopportune time, kind of slowed down the process, and I think about 2 or 3 of the augmented wells that supplies Portmore is a part of the process. So hopefully going forward, we should see some form of improvement going to the customers in that space.
But Mr. Fagan, I think you could also point out that a lot of the traditional generators were standby generators, not continuous duty generators, which are a lot more expensive. So even when a standby comes in, it's designed for a few hours. it's designed to run for a few hours. It's not designed to take over, to replace a continuous GPS supply. It's designed for a temporary outage. So it kicks in for a few hours. There is not a logistics infrastructure to keep refueling it, etc., to give a proper substitute for the GPS supply.
Final question.
That's one of the.
Right. Final question for this round, Mr. Chair. Given the concerns about water quality issues that existed before Hurricane Melissa, can you confirm that all restored water supply meets Bureau standards or whatever quality control measures that you have in place, water quality standards?
Thank you very much, Member. A very, very good question. And one of the things I can highlight to you, the issue of quality is one that we're not going to compromise on. Yes, there were reports before that we had some areas that we had some issues. To date, post Hurricane Melissa, our regulator has not come back to us to say that there is any area that they have, because they do parallel testing. We do testing every day. And they would not have come back to us and said they had any adverse findings. As a matter of fact, I can relate to you. Maybe 2 weeks after the hurricane, I was at one of my major treatment plants, and Ministry of Health basically turned up there to do the requisite checks. To underscore the point, we have a well that supplies Santa Cruz. Power has been restored to the facility. However, we have to be doing extensive trucking. The reason why we have not put back that system into operation, because our quality department, despite what my operations colleagues say, they think the water is good, the quality looks good, but the quality department says to us, listen, we're not going to put that into operation yet. So it kind of gives you an indication, an idea as to exactly where we stand in it. So to the answer to your question, I am not aware of any systems or major systems that we basically have operational, that the quality is not what it ought to be. A matter of fact, the mandate to the operation team, once the quality is not what it ought to be, we shut it down. It's simply put.
Thank you.
Just a right on that. Is it the municipal corporations who, as the local board of health, that is responsible for the independent body for monitoring water quality?
MOH.
It's a Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health.
Oh.
But Chair, I must say, just to add to the response to the member, the OUR has now mandated us as a regulator to start providing them with the requisite information so they can do their checks as well.
So the water quality testing reports would go to OUR.
They have mandated us. Just last week, Chair, we had a meeting with them, and they said to us that they want the information so they can do their own independent checks. So we have no issue with that.
Mr. Clarke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I go into the questioning, Mr. Chairman, let me say this. Welcome to the team from NWC, and thus far, I think we have been doing great. But on the other hand, Mr. Chairman, I realize that, and I know my colleagues are going to try to hit out, but this is it. Most of the questions that are being posed are really infrastructural questions, and I want us to stay the course of PAAC account and appropriation. You understand me? I do understand the situation And so I am not going to really stay on it, but just to point out to my colleagues that
We're impinging on your turf. But anyway, go to the question.
The thing is, where I want to go is the Prime Minister would have made an announcement as to a project that would see, especially in the western section, and some amount of funding. The funding was supposed to be out. I want to hear more about the water resilience project that is supposed to take on in the western side of the country that will deal with the supply, because Jamaica is not short of water.
Is this project in the 25-26 budget?
I am going to ask. I'm asking. No, the funding. Where are we? How far are we with it?
That's the Western Resilient project. So which actually starts at Materbury, replacement of the transmission main coming into terminal, and then leads from Lucy going into Negril. The project is on the way. It's not financed directly through NWC, but by central government. That's a game changer. That project. So it also takes into consideration rehabilitation of the intake at Great River. The design capacity for Great River is 50 million gallons per day. A part of the project will increase the amount of water being extracted from the intake. But the reason why remember that project is of such paramount importance is that maybe about 70% of water that is produced from Materbury being exported is going through a leak. And you would appreciate and know the number of leaks that would have popped up in recent times. So that one is a big game changer for us. So what it will enable us to do is to satisfy the increasing demand along the corridor. I'm going all the way back to Lucy. And Negril, as my colleague rightfully put in. A part of the resilience, and you rightfully indicated, is to look at the storage that we basically have, is to ensure that during downtimes we have the requisite storage and the system that can provide water to our customers. So the question you asked earlier, if it is, as I said before, it's not being financed directly through NWC, but it's a necessity.
Is the project managed by NWC?
I'm sorry, Chair.
Are you project managers for it? Do you manage the project?
It's a co-manager.
Co-manager.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Great River supplies Montego Bay as well.
Yes, the Great River supplies Montego Bay as well. Yes, it has a multiplier effect. So with the water you produce in Great River, it goes right back to the elegant corridor. It goes and over, and
so you're saying 70% is lost, is non-revenue.
70% is,
and that's primarily leaks, or is there theft as well?
It's a confluence of both. But on the main transmission main, the 32-inch main, we don't have people doing connections on those. For the main transmission main, it is actually leaks.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Clarke? Go ahead.
For the standalone system, such as, I know you may have some in South St. James as well as in West Central St. James. I know we keep speaking about the generators, but I do understand how the generator works. It's not the most feasible or the most less expensive of them all. And so we're in the time of green energy. How far away is NWC as it relates to harnessing wind power or solar power to run these standalone entities?
And this actually ties back to a question we raised but didn't have too much time to explore at the last session, where these supplies that are in remote areas, whether it's really feasible to run electricity lines, and each time we have a hurricane there go down, and the cost of putting back these lines, whether a localized solar or alternate energy system.
Chairman, the three-phase is not one of the easiest current to manage. And once that is out, I mean the system shut down until JPS can get back. And by the time JPS will get back and the line is to be energized and all of that, it takes maybe 2 weeks or so. So I am really asking the question, and if you have given thought to it, how far?
And I'll tell you, one of the challenges is that pumps are using induction motors. And when they're starting up, they pull a tremendous amount of electricity, which means you have to oversize, in a sense, the power supply in order to facilitate the startup. So I was giving you a little engineering. Go ahead.
I will ask my technical services manager, Aubrey, just to answer that one.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair. And I see I have a great deal of engineering knowledge. Yes, indeed. We looked at our standalone systems, especially in the remote areas. One of the things with solar, which is a green energy, it requires a lot of land space to house the solar panels. And unfortunately, most of our available land cannot adequately provide enough energy to operate those facilities. So we might have to look at probably hybrid in terms of energy reduction. I'm going to give you a typical example. A 100 horsepower motor, to use solar panel to operate that, you're looking at somewhere about 10 acres of land in terms of how you space the solar panel for maintenance purposes and the number of panel requires. You're looking at over 300 panels. So you utilize a very large footprint in terms of land to operate those facilities. So yes, the thought is there, and you'll hear people saying that, okay, why not NWC does go straight solar? It's not that practical. One of the other vehicles that we have been looking at is a process called wheeling. Wheeling is utilizing the JPS car service wires. We generate the electricity via solar, wind, wherever, where we have the land space. And then we dump it on the grid, and at a fee, they allow us to utilize that energy wherever we want to. It's been a tedious process. I'm trying to get that approved. But notwithstanding, to utilize solar, as Chair has said, your starting power requirement to overcome inertia, to get a motor cranking and going, would be running you somewhere about 5 to 7 times your normal operating current. So it's like when you have a car and the battery dead and you're trying to get that initial start, it uses a very high energy to overcome inertia to get the engine turned over. It's the same. So with the same issue with the electrical motor, you need a very large starting current. We have used technology over at some of our facilities to overcome that. We have what is called reduced voltage starter, where we use electronic starter, which can gradually ramp up the load onto the unit, so that we can go right down to about 2.5 to 1 in terms of the size generator. Typically, you might go 5 to 1, 100 horsepower, use 5 or 500 kVA generator. We can go down to about 2.5 to 1 now with technology to start that unit. So we're utilizing that at NWC, or a specification that we recently sent out in terms of procurement. We have to revise it, build resilience into our system. So we look at, Chair said it again, continuous duty generators that utilize SCADAs, so that we can remotely communicate with the unit. We don't have to be on site. so we can remotely communicate, stop, start that unit. And we look at fuel efficiencies in terms of getting, a better efficient unit, type unit. We specify the unit that are coming from established manufacturers such as Caterpillars. So we have been doing that.
Yeah, that technology is often referred to as soft start switches, which reduces that initial intake by about 70%. A final question this round for you, Mr. Clarke.
So I now I understand, I get a better understanding of what it is we're switching from JPS directly to solar, but I still did not hear you mention anything about the wind generation of electricity, harnessing from the wind. Fine, okay, you can give us something on that if you have it. And also, I hear you mention of the wheeling situation that you have with JPS. But whilst NWC has quite an amount of land space within the office roofs and open lands that you have, and you can always set up and exchange with JPS that part. We are now speaking directly of the remote, the one that we up in the hill of South St. James or up in Manchester Hill. We want to understand, yes, you have a 3-phase current going up there. What is it? Because once electricity is down from JPS, then that system is down and the entire community or sometime half of the parish don't have no water. How are we going to treat with that situation?
So remember, those are rosy points, but there's a very important component that you have to put in the mix. So just to add to the response Arby gave, we are exploring, we have a number of projects. Matter of fact, in Montego Bay right now, where the terminal reservoir, there's 3 million gallons reservoir, we have a solar project being undertaken there as we speak. So there are a number that we're exploring and that are in some in the embryonic stages.
What about the one at Mona Reservoir? Didn't we hear a big announcement about that a few years?
Yes, that one is still in train as well. But a critical part of it, because we have 2 systems in St. Elizabeth that are solar driven. I think one is in Aberdeen and the next one is in Houghton. Is it? Yeah. I'm pretty sure about the Aberdeen one. But the system right there and they are vandalized. The inverter batteries are gone. So whilst we have to explore those options, we also have to be cognizant of and be mindful.
Vulnerability.
Precisely.
All right, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Pre-Melissa, post-Melissa, I have had customers complaining agonizingly about receiving bills consistently and not being able to access the service consistently. And as such, I know your billing system comes with sewage and all the rest of it, which people have to pay for, but they have not been receiving any water in their lines. So what are your plans to fix that? And what is your billing system and your rebate system for our customers? Thanks. First question.
All right, thank you, member. So what the NWC does for the customers impacted by water outages, we approach it in 2 ways. The metered customers, their meter reading will reconcile any charges that may have been estimated during the hurricane period when our teams were not out. All right. We've also taken into consideration where there's a possible impact, for instance, by customers experiencing breaks, pipeline breaks, where water comes back. They may be not at home, the house was damaged, the property was damaged, but the water is now running to waste. And we have asked those customers, and we'll continue to publish, that we will offer a facility for those accounts to be examined and some kind of discretion be applied for cases such as those. The estimated one, similarly, once we draw a line in terms of the period of estimate when it started and when water is restored to the communities. We've been talking a little bit about the worst impacted areas in Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and so on, St. Elizabeth. Once we are able to establish the restoration period, those accounts will also be written off in terms of any charges that were assessed post Melissa and onward up to the time when water is restored.
Thank you. I know you have just listed a number of parishes that would have been affected by.
Not just to establish the ones that we know on this day still are out of supply. Most of the other parishes have been fully restored. Those are the customers that we can take, if they have not already contacted us, we can take their reports to say, okay, I'm seeing whatever kind of charges on my bill, and we will advise. The restoration, well, the adjustment process for the benefit of all is, while it's systematic, it also requires a manual review just to verify the period. And so they may not necessarily see it immediately on the first bill after water is restored.
Okay. You would have mentioned a few parishes that were affected by Hurricane Melissa. I did not hear Clarendon. Without being accused of being parochial by my fellow members, I would lay specifically about Northern Clarendon, where the hurricane came and damaged the citizens, damaged their infrastructure.
Yes.
What are the plans to restore and upgrade the plant in those areas so that they can supply the customers in a very timely fashion and in a consistent manner?
All right, VP will take that and give you a full response.
Thank you very much.
Mike.
We made mention because we're not leaving out Clarendon. In fact, Northern Clarendon is where I'm from. I'm from Northern Clarendon. So there are there's work to be done in Northern Clarendon. I know my team would have gone through recently with a tour with you to look at some of the facilities. And we're giving a commitment that based on some of the checks were done and some of the promises that were made, particularly in Kellits, where that treatment plant, that system, but once the rain falls, it basically goes out of operation. So taking that feedback into consideration, I would have already engaged the engineering department to look at the entire process to see how best we basically can do a revamp of that system. I would have gotten the report from the regional manager, who is a big advocate for his region, as to a number of things, and we have seen the listing coming out of that walkthrough with you. So you'll definitely be seeing some changes coming and some alteration to some of our operations. But the reason why we made mention specifically about the western part, because in terms of the infrastructure, they were most adversely impacted. Just to quickly, to expound on a response that my colleague gave, one of the things that we're also looking at, and I want to say to our customers, we are going to look at every case individually. So if a customer gets a bill and they have a challenge, we have a mechanism in place just to review. In fact, one of the things that we are going to look at, Chair, is for those customers who maybe suffer your pipe break off during the hurricane, that you're totally oblivious to the fact that we find that there's a leak there. We are giving special consideration. We are going to basically look at those. But so once any customer has any problem, and it comes to our attention, rest assured we'll be looking at them.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Hines, so are you challenging the table that was presented, which showed that Clarendon had all their customers restored? You're saying that's not your experience in your...
Yeah, there are some customers that have not been restored. Yeah, in all fairness to the NWC, they would have agreed to a tour. Mr. Williams Delano was on that tour, and they had made some commitments to which the leaders...
So what we're seeing is that there is a role of the representatives to supplement the information that's coming to the NWC to help them properly reconcile their reports. You had a final question?
No, that was it.
Ms. Bircha?
Thank you, Mr. Fagan. Thank you to the NWC team, and thank you for the commitment that the plants in South St. James will get some priority by end of month.
8th of your plants.
By the 8th of March.
Yes. No,
So-
8 of your plants.
Oh,
which are
8
out.
of our plans
Yes, which
will
are
be, okay, thank you so much for that. I was looking at the emergency response measures that you outlined in your presentation. And while I accept that the economic centers and the hospitals, which are often at the urban centers in our parishes, must be prioritized, I continue to wonder why deep rural areas in the country remain structurally deprioritized. Rural, rural areas, as you know, we supply the staff for the economic areas. We feed them. They are the agricultural hubs of this country. And if Jamaica is going to rebound, especially after Hurricane Melissa, then we cannot continue to keep them deprioritized in every structure that we put forward. I think NWC needs to look at a holistic rural resilience plan that not only has us on our back foot every time a storm comes, or say, okay, hold on, rural communities, because we have to look at these urban centers, but that you are actively pursuing a plan that prioritizes us and sees our needs and our water needs as urgent as well. What I'm asking is, as we prepare for the budget coming up, what percentage of your capex are you looking to put towards rural reinforcement? Not just in emergencies and after Hurricane Melissa, but as a part of your ongoing strategic portfolio, what percentage of your plan, your capex, will you put to that? And is there a defined rural infrastructure upgrade, maintenance plan that is defined in your SOPs that you have at the National Water Commission? And are rural systems being rebuilt at a higher resilience standard? Or are we just patching up rural plans as we go along the way? When will we see a truly holistic plan for us? They're all interrelated. It's really the same question.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it might be hard for them to keep up with all the sort of machine gun rate of the questions
Mr.
coming.
Fagan used to this, man. He knows it.
So just pause, allow them to answer those 5 questions or so, and then complete the.
All right.
I know they're all related,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
and when you answer, there are, I think, what I refer to as rural water supply schemes that are not operated by NWC. But to the extent you have knowledge of those and what's happening there, you could also speak to it.
All right, so I am taking the first part and the last part, and the VP will deal with the middle part. So, as one of the RMs that primarily has the rural areas, so Hanover, Westmoreland, one of the challenges that we face in terms of, just to address the matter of how speedily we can respond to the rural side, is that even the schedule of restoration from an energy standpoint, so we are heavily dependent on the JPS energy, etc. And then the infrastructure and terrain difficulties that we may face sometimes impact our ability to respond as quickly, because, as you'd appreciate, it's just challenging to access. I guess that's why they call it rural. But the point is, these are some of the things that cause us to end up reacting at the time that we do. And then the urban centers, the hospitals, where we have these major commercial areas, twofold. One, because of the economy that it provides, the critical services, and also as revenue centers to supplement the business to be able to go into these rural areas. So generally speaking, the financing that we get them from these major customers, which allows us to be able to do some work in that area. But notwithstanding that, we have comprehensive programs to upgrade all our facilities at the local level, regionally. So when you mention, we probably don't call it a rural resilience program, but there is a facility in place in terms of the plans that we have to have this resilience built into our individual rural structures. So as regional managers, each of us within our regions now look at these rural systems. What are the shortcomings? What can we do as well? Because it is also in our best interest to have them as resilient as possible, so that because it takes so long to get to them, that we are able to write. So that is a part of it. But as you would imagine, Melissa came, the major things took priority. So we will be working through that. Those are on the books.
The issue as it relates to CapEx, I'm sitting here trying to recall. It's an exhaustive listing. I could really look at the listing to see if the CapEx covers any of your areas. But there are a number of things that have to be taken into consideration. And so in terms of the sources for some of the rural systems. So here's the strategy in that regard. It's very important, similar to what we had with member from Clarina Northern, where we identify some of these discrete systems or areas that we can do improvement on. And we do small projects to see how best we can enhance the supply. So that's one mode. Secondly, Chair, Rural Water Supply Limited play a significant role in this regard. So they're the engineering agency as it relates to the execution of some of those projects. So they come to us, we have a discussion, we do the design. After we do the design, they do the implementation. So Rural Water Supplies that agency that you could basically reach out to in that regard. And the final part of your answer must say, we're not leaving the rural parts alone, because as a rural man from Clarina Northern, myself have a soft part for the rural parts.
Just a quick follow-up, and thank you for that. Yes, I understand that not all of this is in your remit, but to the extent that you have control over, well, a number, quite a bit of them, I'm asking not just as a reactive, after Melissa, you can't get in. I'm asking, no, when you're sitting down to crunch your numbers, I'm putting it to you to put something towards the reinforcement and upgrade and maintenance of the rural plants, not just to patch it up here and there. I'm putting that to you.
Remember.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to do a final round. I know Mr. Newell had further questions. Ms. Lee has just arrived, and we wouldn't want to exclude you from if you have any issues, although perhaps you didn't benefit from the presentation. But in terms of commencing the final round, I just want to ask, and I must say, I'm conflicted, because I remember my days as chairman of the Water Commission and the commercial challenges of providing water to rural communities, especially those elevated up on the Manchester Plateau, for example. The commercial challenges of providing that versus the rights of citizens to potable water, just from a public health perspective, if nothing else. So I start by declaring that I'm somewhat conflicted. But in terms of the rural water systems generally, I'm trying to understand. I know you are not in charge of all the rural water systems, but I'm trying to understand, where does the coordination come from? If an MP wanted to make representation for a community that is not now served by NWC or by any other system, what is the point of contact? How does an MP or any elected representative know where to go to make that representation, and where the divide between rural water systems and NWC comes into play? That's one. And the second part of the question is, you spoke to the customers, and I assume when you say total customers, you're talking total accounts, because I know each account would probably serve 3, 4, 5 persons on average. So you speak to the total customers, which is total accounts of 556,000. Would you have an estimate for the unserved if you were to serve 100% of the population, which may never be achievable? But I'm just trying to say, this 556,000, would it represent 90% of the potential customer base? 80%, 95%. I just want to get an estimate. I understand this is an estimate of what this represents in terms of the total population.
Response to the last question is about 72%. By 72%. The response to your first question is that any elected member of parliament or councillor, once they can make a request for us to have a meeting and have tours of different areas, that is something that we facilitate. So we have a community relations department, we have a community relations manager for each division, and part of their responsibility is to have that kind of communication. So once, let us say, Member Hines, like what he did recently, he made a request that he wants to have a tour of a particular local. We definitely facilitate that. That's open. So we normally have the meeting, outline to hit them what our plans are, show them what is basically in the parish plan, and then we go on the ground. And if it is practical, if it's feasible, and a number of instances, Chair, I made mention about the small projects that we do internally. Most of these internal projects that we execute comes out of the advocacy from the member of parliament, councillors, etc. If it is a situation or a case in point now where we visit and find out that's the source that is not served by us, we make that communication with Rural Water, who we have a very, very close working relationship with.
Rural Water is in the same ministry or it's in local? Same ministry?
Yeah, same ministry, Chair.
All right. Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. 3 questions, just only. So one, as a representative, I've had a lot of people who reach out saying they've not had water in their pipe for many weeks, months, years, but they still incur a service charge on their bill. I think some don't understand it. I certainly don't fully get it, because if there's no service, there's a concern, why is there a service charge? So that's one. Second is, after a hurricane in Jamaica, generally there's an increase in sales of bottled water. And some of it has to do with just confidence in terms of the water supply going to the home. As a the environment being in my area of my portfolio area, I'm wondering whether, since NWC says the tests prove that your water quality is good, whether more can or will be done to promote drinking from the tap. And the final question of the 3 is, there are still a number of areas that have NWC has no footprint. I know it can't be parochial, so Operation Pride schemes, for example. I can't mention Frontier or Comsey or Ballard's Valley. But for example, those, I'm wondering what the process is to get those communities on the NWC grid. So those are the 3 questions.
On a question related to bottled water, I can tell you, when I was chairman, the World Bank, I think it was, had sent an expert, and they tested NWC water against bottled waters, and NWC potable water was actually higher quality than most bottled waters at the time. I don't know if there have been any subsequent studies done, but I would invite Mr. Fagan to respond.
All right. Thank you, member, and I appreciate the opportunity to, again, just exalt the quality of the water that we do distribute. Sometimes it's really an abundance of, a combination of humility and caution, in that while we do always stand by the quality of the water, Mr. Fagan would have elaborated on the various steps we take to guarantee water that we distribute, and the steps we take if there is any kind of risk factor. We also are mindful that once the water leaves and is on the way to customers, there are other environmental factors. The pipe can be broken. Customers sometimes have issues at their premises. And so sometimes we still adhere to the recommendations that will come from the Ministry of Health if they put out a boiled water advisory, etc., after the passage of a hurricane. But definitely, we always promote and will continue to promote that our water, once it is in the tap, is ready for drinking, ready for all domestic use, and is safe and quite well healthy for our customers, in fact.
All right. So, remember, the question was asked about with respect to service charge. So, if your supply is disconnected in the system, you don't get a service charge. What you find, though, in a number of communities, once you are on the system, we have a duty and a responsibility to provide you with water. So, we have a number of customers, though the service might be intermittent, they request water maybe once per month. I will chuck them water once per month. So the service charge goes a far way in covering the cost in that regard. You made mention about is it Frontier? Yeah. Frontier, right? So that's a system or a scheme that was undertaken by HAJ. It was brought to my attention. I personally will be having some discussions to find out what the sticking points are. As I indicated earlier, is that we have certain stipulations and certain guidelines for some of our systems. And we are insistent that we are not going to take some systems which are not conforming with what our outline procedures are. But I'll take a personal look at it and have a discussion with them, along with a discussion with the regional manager to find out exactly what the sticking points are.
But for the understanding of everyone, including myself, are these systems operating now? These operating water systems?
So the three examples I gave of them, Frontier, that a system was put in place in 2007, That's about 20 years ago almost. That system is no longer fully intact. Just over time.
But it was operating and delivering
in
water.
2007, it was operational, but it was never handed over.
It was never taken over.
The other two, they had pipe water before, and for different reasons, they've been disconnected and cut off from the grid. The other two communities mentioned.
Do the requisite checks on those. I can't speak to them. The last point that I want to make about, because I want the matter or the issue of quality to be emphasized. It's not by coincidence, Chair. You spoke about whilst you're here as chairman. It's not by coincidence that cruise ships passing through this part of the hemisphere comes to Montego Bay, Falmouth to purchase water from us. It's not by coincidence. Secondly, the hotel system, the major hotel chains, they have a very robust system of checks and balances also. So notwithstanding what we basically give to them, they have their own systems. And I can't recall in the recent past or currently, before a number of them went out of operation, we got any complaints about quality. Yeah, we know about the issue of, as it relates to quality, people utilizing bottled water. It's to some degree, as my colleague said, it's a perception, it's a personal choice. But what I can say to you, it's not by coincidence. Almost every year at CWA conference, NWC has the best tasting, the best quality water, and we stand by that.
The specific question, since you are housed in the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change, and since reducing PET bottles, I would imagine, is a mandate of the ministry, do you believe you're doing enough to promote all of this good news, or do you believe more can be done so that more people will convert to tap and perhaps less the bottle? If I could get a response on that.
And also, I'm pretty sure NWC water doesn't have microplastics in it.
Remember, the short and cursory response is yes. I think we can and should do more, certainly in terms of communicated to the populace the quality of water that we supply. I take that one. And that is something that we are prepared to look at. My corporate public relations manager is here. That is something that we definitely can look at enhancing.
All right, I have, after Mr. Newell, I have Mr. Clarke and then Ms. Lee.
Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Clarke, unless if you want to be a gentleman and yield to Ms. Lee.
So you're saying if me not do it, me not drink. All right, more big drink.
But turn off your mic. I'll come to you a second. Go ahead, Miss Lee. Your mic is on.
Oh, it's on. Oh, sorry. I saw it green. So I missed. Oh God, please. Oh, sorry. Please don't tell Madam Speaker that I missed the lesson. Thank you, Chair. Let me apologize for being late. I'm one when I go to these meetings and so on when you're late and the questions sound repetitive. So forgive me if it was asked before and it was answered. However, I just three, one comment, two questions. First comment is to your PR team, sir. 4 months after a hurricane, for example, St. Anne, Trelawney, other areas within the country would still not have received water. You have here, 20% approximately. For me, as a member of parliament, and I'm sure other persons would feel the same way, how about going into communities and having meetings at this point just to communicate with the customers? Because I'm not getting that feedback, but I know how customers are. If you don't engage them, to give them timelines, give them updates. So if it doesn't come from NWC, for example, I was thinking, do I need to plan a meeting, say, for my farm town, Bethel town areas and so on? Because people want to know what is happening after a period of time, 4 months. I know you're genuinely out because I see that the Darnot Bridge has totally collapsed. So I know that is the reason. And I'm sure the customers have heard that, for example, using Trelawney and St. Anne as an example. But it would be good after 4 months to have meetings across the country, just to engage the customers, inform them, so on and so forth. That's my comment there. Question though from the Darnot about the Darnot Bridge. Is it in this 20% to be up by March 15, the facilities?
Just to correct you, you keep saying 20%. It's 5% that's out. 95% has been restored.
So Darnot would be in the 5%.
Yes.
Right. So, and I see here 20 sites. The 20 sites that are being restored should be up by March 15. So so that includes the Darnot facility. I'm asking.
Okay, there was a substantial presentation. You have to press your request. There was a substantial mention of the Darnot Bridge.
Yes.
I think it was during the presentation. But we would allow Mr. Fagan to just address that again.
The question with respect to community engagement, we definitely take that. We're very stretched. But particularly for that system, I think Delon and team will have to basically go inside there. Based on the fact that the extent of the damage that has been suffered. A matter of fact, we were, for the first month and a half, we were unable to access the facility. As Chair made mention, this is one of the facility that the preliminary pictures, etc., that we got, we had to use drone. We actually went to the facility sometime last week. We met with JPS. We are expediting the process. A matter of fact, this morning before I came to the meeting, my engineering colleague and I had a discussion with respect to it. We're going to put in a temporary access point to the facility so we can get it up and running. The good thing about it is that power is actually there because JPS has a hydro plant at the facility. So Darnot is one that is topical for us, certainly because we know that system supplies not only St. Anne, but also Trelawney.
Right.
And I'm going to tie that back with the original point. Yes, we need to do some additional community engagement to enhance the
right, because I understand that you're stretched, which is why I'm saying, but when we're looking at the timeline, people want to hear something.
If you can even give an estimate to say by the end of March or
so just set a schedule or something, and I'm sure they would appreciate that, My next question, thank you for your response. My next question is, I'm sorry again if I missed it. For the upcoming, of course, we have to prepare and learn and grow and so on. So one of the takeaways is that after the hurricane, we realized that some of our facilities did not have backup generators and so on. How are we now in terms of improving on that heading into the season again?
Yeah, there have been extensive coverage of that already.
I did say I wasn't here.
Okay, I'm going to ask your colleague, Mr. Clarke, or it's in the minutes, because we've spent a lot of time covering that. So just in the interest of efficiency, I'm going to ask you to We can bring you up to speed on that. Mr. Clarke, it is your turn to ask questions. And you're being consistent. You're not being partisan. You're being consistent. Like the chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. My last question or comment, query, it really has to do with the way you bill. Jamaicans are still yet to understand how your billing works. You need to do something about it. What are you going to do about it? Because even me, sometimes it is mind-boggling. I just pay the bill because I don't want no cash on my gate. So I just pay the bill. But for example, the hurricane was in October, November, December, part of January, we were still without water. But yet you get a bill that keeps climbing. Yeah, I have it right here. I can show you all of the bill, and I plan to show you the bills as soon as I step up. And it keep climbing and climbing, I keep paying, and I can't understand. You said to us that would have gotten a rebate, but I still not seen it. So to the man out there, John Public, it is even worse because the story is told, and my colleagues will tell you. Them hear it every day. MP boss, we not get no water, but with the sea bill, what would they pay for? And I give it to you in the vernacular. You understand me? Because this is how them pass it to us. And
I'll remind you that standing orders says the standard English.
We are at a point wherein we can explain it because it is still not understanding to us as to how it is done. I know that you have been implementing the meters that you don't have to come to the homes anymore, right? Yeah, you can drive by, but you seldom drive by now because you have that technology. So it should tell us, say, I am not getting any water. The customer up in Timbuktu not getting any water, so why send him a bill?
Thank you, member. So when we started the presentation, we actually outlined a couple of factors, right? Because you're an active customer, you still get a bill throughout the period. A number of the persons are what we call estimated. The traditional term in Jamaica is flat rates. This applies to persons who do not have a meter or they've had a meter that is no longer accessible, whether it's damaged or we just can't get to the area to read it. Since the passage of the storm, those persons would still, because they're active customers, the system would still produce a bill for you using the average of your previous consumption. And that applies for like your last 3 consumption amounts, all right? So persons coming into November, December you're still active, you're still waiting for supply, or your supply may have come back briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I am one of the flat rate,
yes,
or if I'm one of the estimated person, why is it that the flat rate keep increasing? Why is it that the estimated bill keep increasing when it should be decreasing?
So the standard, I would have to see.
Could you just estimate what percentage of your accounts are flat rate?
Presently, I think less than 20%. Yeah, 20 to 25% of our customers. The increase is what would call an anomaly, but it would be guided by if the period, so you're billed for a standard 30-day period. If it's less or more outside of that window, then the average, it's prorated. That's the norm. So we would want to take a look at those. The standard customers estimate if you're a flat rate customer, to use the term, so you can relate, it would then be guided by whatever you are using prior to the period of your disruption. All right? As Mr. Fagan chimes in, I want to just finish to make the point about the metered customers. The metered customers, we said that you're coming out of the storm, you may have not gotten a reading, perhaps due to access challenges in either November, December, or onward. Those persons also may get an estimated bill, or the actual reading may have been inflated by whatever hurricane conditions impacted the premises. If you were estimated, the reading will reflect exactly what transpired at the property. If the pipe broke, if you fill up the tank, or if you got no water, the reading will reflect that. So you should see a lesser bill come the time when we take a reading. If it was impacted by a break, then we said we have a special facility to accommodate the persons who your normal usage is for $10, but a pipeline break, a tree fell on the line or something uprooted, or you vacated the house and the taps were left running. We will take those into consideration and assist you with a discount.
Mr. Fagan?
If I will, remember, this is since we have been having this discussion, this is maybe the third or fourth question we have been had. Member Hines mentioned about some billing. The fact that is what is the general feeling. So it is something that we will have to take away now, to look back at, certainly, Chairman, in terms of, we're not hiding from it, in terms of how we basically communicate when the customers get this bill before the adjustments are done. Because I know to an extent, there are for some systems, manual adjustments that have to be done. So I think one of the takeaways from this discussion this morning is for us to basically go back with our billing team and the different regional teams and look at how we can enhance the communication in that regard. Just to assure the customers that if you get an estimated bill, you know you didn't get water for a protracted period of time, when and how those adjustments will be reflected on their accounts.
All right, we'll take your word for it, and that we will look forward to some public communication to improve on it. I really want to know, coming to the wrapping up, I see Dr. Dawes, if that is our final question for the NWC, so that we're able to bring this session to a close. Dr. Dawes?
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to the procurement, you have 12 new trucks, you have increased contractors operating on the revised trucking rates, increased generator deployments, you said up to $500,000 per day rental, emergency pipeline works, and all of this is executed under emergency procurement rules. But we know historically that this is a setup for inflated costs, and you're vulnerable for irregularities occurring under your watch. So what sort of increased vigilance do you have in place? Are you looking at increased internal audits? What's the benchmark for these prices? Are these trucks bought at market share? Been increasing the rates? What, again, are you using? Is it 100% of the private sector market rates? Is it above, just below? You know, what are you doing to protect the taxpayer dollars?
Thank you very much, member, for that question. So we have a robust system in place with respect to trucking internally. That's a given. So when we engage a trucker, it goes to the loading bay. Whatever he receives is actually recorded. A part of the process is when we send him in a particular community, particularly with our customers, the names, account numbers have to be there before those are signed off on. One gauge that we use, because there are some areas that we send in a truck, they are not our customers, but from a social perspective. How do we know it's not reaching? A number of times the political representative, they come back to us to say, Mr. Fagan, this area didn't get any water. So from that perspective, we have a very robust system in place. When the truck
but it's not real.
Reported for the news on PBCJ, I am Denita Rodney.
The Ministry of Culture has announced the list of 2026 Reggae Gold Awards and Hall of Fame